United Airlines Flight 553. United Airlines Flight 553 was a scheduled flight from Washington National Airport to Omaha. On December 8, 1972, the Boeing 737-222 serving the flight, City of Lincoln, registration N9031U, 2 crashed during an aborted landing and go around while approaching Midway Airport. 1. The plane crashed into a residential neighborhood, destroying 5 houses. There was an intense ground fire. 43 of the 61 aboard the aircraft and 2 on the ground were killed. Among the passengers killed were Illinois Congressman George W. Collins, CBS News correspondent Michele and Dorothy Hunt, the wife of Watergate conspirator E. Howard Hunt. This crash was the first fatal accident involving a Boeing 737, which had entered airline service nearly 5 years earlier, in February 1968. Flight. United Airlines Flight 553 was a scheduled service from Washington National Airport to Omaha. The aircraft used for the flight was a 4-year-old Boeing 737-222, City of Lincoln, registration N9031U, 2 built in 1968. The flight deck crew consisted of Captain Wendell Louis Whitehouse, age 44, First Officer Walter O. Coble, 43, and Second Officer Barry J. Elder, 31. 36. The captain, a highly experienced pilot with approximately 18,000 flight hours to his credit, had been with the airline since 1956 and had logged more than 2,400 flight hours on the Boeing 737 cockpit. 36. First Officer Coble had more than 10,600 flight hours, including nearly 1,700 hours on the Boeing 737, under his belt, and Second Officer Elder had close to 2,700 hours, with nearly 1,200 of them on the Boeing 737. 36. Accident. The accident occurred as the aircraft was on a northwesterly heading to land on runway 31L at Midway Airport. 2. The area was overcast at the time. A pilot landing on that runway immediately after the accident later reported that the airport was only visible below 500-600 feet 150-180 MAGL. 7. Flight 553 was on instruments, cleared by air traffic control at 14:24 CST for a non-precision approach. 1. The localizer approach for runway 31L used an outer marker beacon OMB named Kedzie, located 3.3 nmi 6.1 km, 3.8 mi prior to the runway threshold. Under the published landing procedures, the aircraft was to maintain a minimum altitude of 1,500 feet 460 m until it passed the OMB, at which point the flight was allowed to descend to a minimum descent altitude MDA of 1,040 feet 320 m. 7. Published procedures and pilots operating under instrument flight rules use mean sea level MSL as the point of reference for measuring altitude. At Midway Airport, an altitude of 1,040 feet 320 m MSL corresponded to an actual height above ground level AGL of only 429 feet 131 m. 7. When Flight 553 reached the Kedzie OMB, the aircraft was still at an altitude of 2,200 feet 670 m MSL, a full 700 feet 210 m above the minimum crossing altitude of 1,500 feet 460 m MSL, 26,1160 feet 350 m above the height at which the decision on whether to land must be final. Realizing the aircraft was too high, the captain extended the spoiler's speed brakes and steepened the aircraft's descent rate to 1,550 feet 470 m per minute, 26 in comparison with the 1,000 feet 300 m per minute approximate rate specified, 57, by United Airlines for the final segment of a non-precision approach. The aircraft continued to descend at a rate of 1,500 feet 460 m per minute, emerging from cloud 500 feet 26:27 the captain leveled the plane off and increased engine power, but did not advance the throttles fully. With the spoilers still extended, thrust was not enough to maintain level flight without losing speed. 29 the stick shaker, a stall warning device attached to the pilot's control yoke, activated 6-7 seconds after the aircraft leveled off and continued to sound as the aircraft entered an aerodynamic stall. 28 the aircraft struck trees and then roofs along W 71st Street before crashing into a house at 3722 W 70th Place, 1.89 miles 3.0 km southeast of the runway, in a residential area of the city's West Lawn community, 1.5 blocks west of Market. 41.7 thousand, 653 DEG and 87.7 thousand, 106 DIDEG W/41.7 thousand, 653, minus 87.7 thousand, 160 T. Victims. The three-man flight crew died, along with 40 of the 55 passengers. Before the crash destroyed 5 houses and damaged 3 others, 5 killing 2 people on the ground. 4 survivors credited the heroic actions of stewardesses who called out to survivors to exit through a hole in the rear of the plane. Investigation. Conspiracy theories. Dorothy Hunt's death led to the accident becoming caught up in rumors and conspiracy theories related to the unfolding Watergate scandal. Hunt was carrying $10,000 in $100 bills when the plane crashed, and some alleged that this money was meant for people connected to Watergate. James McCord alleged that Hunt supplied the Watergate defendants with money for legal expenses. The FBI appearance at the crash scene was also regarded by some as unusually fast. Skeptics of the official narrative speculated that the plane was targeted due to Hunt's presence on board, and that sabotage of the flight was covered up by government agencies. As a result, the accident became known as the Watergate crash. Proponents of Watergate-related theories included Sherman Skolnick, a Chicago-based private investigator, who alleged that the aircraft had been sabotaged by the CIA. On June 13, 1973, Skolnick testified at an NTSB hearing in Rosemont, Illinois, and claimed the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Columbia Broadcasting System, United Airlines, traffic controllers at Midway, and the NTSB itself conspired in a plot to sabotage the flight because 12 of its passengers had links to United Airlines. Officials had asked the NTSB to hear Skolnick's version because he had frequently charged that UAL was among those attempting to suppress his explanation of events. He said that Hunt carried $2 million in travelers' checks and money orders stolen from the Committee for the Re-election of the President, $50,000 in currency, and documents that may have led to the impeachment of President Richard Nixon. He stated a hitman that Nixon had placed aboard the aircraft to make sure that Hunt was killed also died in the crash. He died in the crash. 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 The Chicago Tribune said that Skolnick knitted scores of facts and assumptions together loosely and no documentation was produced to substantiate the charges. The claim of CIA responsibility was echoed by Nixon's special counsel, Chuck Colson, in an interview with Time magazine in 1974. However, the same article speculated that Colson was accusing the CIA of the broad Watergate conspiracy in a desperate attempt to stave off Nixon's impeachment in the scandal, and that Colson may have lost touch with reality as he faced a prison sentence.